That's when the Darwin theory started. Okay? That's when your Darwin theory started. This was evolution. These are the people in exile. That's why they told you that life starts from Africa. They only take their part to give it to you differently. The life they talk about that start from Africa, this is the new life of those exile people that start in Africa. The new life of those kicked out bloodline. Okay? And when they went down there, they start the process of what we call evolution. They start to splice again to survive. But this time, they were more carefully with it. They spliced what we call a workforce. They spliced a workforce because there were not that much of them. There was not a lot of them because it was a selective family bloodline they kicked out of here. So those family bloodline would not survive if they don't have a workforce. So they breed out a workforce. And today they want to call it Igigi, whatever you call it. But this is where they create the Toa people. Today's time, they want to call them the dwarf, the short, small, working people. They want to call them Toa, or you want to call them Bess, whatever name you see fit. But these were the small beings that they created. Okay? There's them right there. Look at what he sits. Okay, these are the exile people, the same exile people. Yeah, the pygmies. There's them right there, the little smaller ones, and they were workers. That's why Hollywood trying to put that in movies to show you Lord of the Rings, showing you the dwarf. They always have been working a whole lot. That's who they were. These are the modern time after the natural selection come. They spliced them as a workforce because these people were not a whole lot of them was around. And the next groups of people you're looking at here, these are the second groups that they splice for what you call your Neanderthal all the way up to human. Your Homo erectus and all of this was the splice process giving you those tiers of creation. They are the Moors. That's right, gorgeous. Empress Redwood. This is where the Moors started from. And yes, these are the hominids. That's why Africa have the largest hominids than any other groups in the world. Let me say one more time. This is why in Africa, they have the largest hominid groups than any other places in the world, because this was the area of the genetically modified headquarters. Okay? That's what they did. So they spliced. This is where your Moors come from. That is the culture of the Moors today. And this is why you find, as we celebrate in Christmas, this was the celebration of the Anunnaki you want to call the Moors today. This is Santa. The Santa they talk about, these were those one that created the working crew. Today Santa have little helpers. Okay, Santa have a little helpers, and also Santa have what is the little helpers? Those Ingigis. What is the little helpers? Your little Twa people. What is your little helpers? Is the best. Okay, what we call best. That's who they were. They giving you this story in our everyday activity. What they were supposed to do, the little helpers of Santa's, work. All they do is working. I know this knowledge, the health, right? The knowledge of a trillion. You ain't ready for this knowledge of a trillion. And that's why Santa, they make sure Santa look like him. Have a long beard that's all white, and they have one of those Fijian bonnet. Okay? And what is color? What color Santa have? The Ottoman Empire color, red and white. What color Santa have? The Ottoman Empire color, red and white, and a splice of green. You see how that work? They put it in your face. That's what they don't tell you. Now, now, this is what happens. After those beans were spliced, they start to build up a little civilization for themselves. And they get a clash. This is where the first clash happens millenniums later. What was the first clash? When some of our indigenous ancestors went to do what? They went to grow food because they want to fix the entire planet. They want to turn the planet to what we call a global planet. They no longer want to keep what you call Zebulon to a desert anymore. They want to turn Zebulon to a full forest and food crop environment just like America. When our ancestors decide to do what? To turn the tail like the Met. That's why you call Kemet. It's a Creole word. It means the tail in the God. Okay? It means the tail in the master. Let me say it one more time. What you call Kemet Africa, it means the tail in the headmaster. So those master went down there to turn this area like where the master lives. Those master went to Africa and create that area so they could turn this tail area. That means the area that was not civilized or advanced enough, they try to turn it to what we call, big up to Brother Earth. He explained this, to make it food and turn the desert to green. Okay? And turn it to green. And this is where the war and the first clash happens again. This time is the same nature, is almost the history repeat itself, but this is what happens over. When these indigenous ancestors went down there, they bring animals with them, and they were the giant. These were the giant that went there. These giant, that's why they told you America have the most giant than any other places in the world, because the giant is the original people of the garden. The giant were the one building the garden. Okay? So, those giant come back. They went to that area. They went to the land of the exile, and they bring civilization. And they want to live an organic life as possible. What is this organic life? Live among animals, create animals so they can trap those demonic forces so we can live in peace and harmony with nature. So these demonic spirits do not incarnate it in a human body to create to create conflict and wars and all that problem. So they make sure they go global with the agenda. And then what did happen when they went there? Let me show you who went there. Let me show you who went there. Now, so you understand, these are the people that went there. This is, do you see? You see the size of, maybe you don't get it. Do you see the size of these elephants? Do you see, man, listen, maybe you don't understand how, man, listen here. These are the people that build the pyramids that we call pyramids of anywhere. These were colossal sized giant ancestors. Okay? That's why when you find these Olmec heads, these were really the size of their freaking heads. Let me say this again. When you see those heads, these were not just small people making those heads. No, these were literally the size of those people's heads. They were giants. You really have no idea, don't you? You really have no idea. Now, as they build Egypt, they build the structure because they were the one that know how. They come from here. America got more pyramids than any other places in the world. They were the pyramid builders. That's why they went there, because they know if they're going to go out there, they have to bring the simple knowledge. And what is the simple knowledge? Make sure the land vibrates. If you're going to create those super food, the land have to produce the electricity that you need. And the pyramid is a generator, and they help the soil vibrate and produce what you call the superfood. And that's why they build it over there and they settle down here first. Now, let me show you these folks. Okay? There's those giants in Egypt. What do you see? They all have the feathers. These are indigenous. What you call Egyptian today, they all indigenous Amarukan that went over there. Today, they want to call them Nubians, but the original name were Mubians. Okay? There's them right there. Look at the size of the cow. Small like a man. Listen. You saw the size of these women. Look at these women in the front. These women look like they got to be at least, I'll say, probably 10 feet or 11. So, these are the people over there to go do the job. Let me show you one more time. And by going out there doing the job, they clash with some hominids. Okay? They clash with some hominids because those hominids was distorting their job. These hominids was distorting their life work because they were creating life form, and one of these life is deemed sacred to them. Let me show you these people. These are the indigenous Amarukan. That's where you get the feather culture. When you saw indigenous people with their feathers, they get it from these original Amarukan to American, whatever you want to call it. This is the same culture that you find in Egypt. That's why we got the same bloodline, because it's the same group of people. Okay? That's them right there. Make no mistakes. Not those people of today. They are not natives. These were the real indigenous. Strong difference between those two. Okay? So, they end up clashing with some hominids over unaliving their sacred animal. And what is the sacred animal? Jaguars. Okay? Jaguar is a no-go for these indigenous to American, what they want to classify as Egyptians today. It's a no-go. Whoever touched these animals is war. Well, these ammonids unalive a boatload of them, and that lead to a war. Now let me show you. Let me show you the war. It was war, folks. And nothing can stop that war, because we understand soon enough those entities did what they did because they listened to some other forces that leaded them to do that. And these were the hominids, and they take the skin of these sacred animals, and that leaded to a war. That is the first encounter with those hominids and the other splice from those past Anunnakis. From those hominids to this. That is the war. Today they know them as the Moors or the Arab League. That's why those Arab actually put a bomb and put a big hole in the pyramids with a bomb. They trying to tell you it's Napoleon. It was Napoleon don't even exist. They are the one they're responsible. The Arab League was the one responsible for the big gash in the pyramids because they know the story. They know exactly what really happened. They will not let you know it, but they know the truth. That is the ancient war. The children of the exile versus the children of the imperium. The children of the garden. Okay? That was the children of the exile being run through because of invasion. Okay? And this is why we left. We left because we could no longer do what we need to do because too many invasion was taking places. And that's why Egypt stays as a desert, because the people that build it left. And today they want to call us Israelite. They want to call us the Jews. These are a new term applying to our indigenous people that went to build Egypt, and some of us left behind from invasion. And who was the one that fled? Okay? Who was the one that actually left? Let me show you who he was. And he come back home, and people like Ben Carson label him as a nomad or as a crazy person. Akhenaten, this is in the Mexico temple. They find this artifacts. Akhenaten, they all come from here. But they want to make sure they hide that evidence because they don't want to link Egypt to America because they know the real Egypt is America. That's why they hide these artifacts. And look at the size of these people. They were giant. This is Akhenaten and his wife. Today they call it TA. They were giants. The same giant that built Egypt. And look at the top, a spaceship. That is what they talk about in the Bible as the chariot of light. Okay? Akhenaten is Moses. Okay? What you said to Akhenaten, he was the Moses in the Bible. When they told you the so-called Pharaoh was enslaving the Jews was the leftover indigenous ancestors that got trapped from invasion, from these Assyrian, from these Anunnaki childrens. When the invasion happened, because we've been at war with these invaders, some of us left, and who left was Akhenaten. Akhenaten left, and for that, a lot of our people, they captured them and they enslaved them. And now what was the enslavement? To force us to build monument for them. Let me say it again. To force us to build monument for them because they were not builders. These people were not builders. So they want to be remembered. So a lot of our people was in captivity to build things for them. And after Akhenaten come back, when he come back, he tell these Assyrians, those distant cousins, those they kicked out from the Garden of America, to let go of his people. Now, what is his people? Those Amarukan, those indigenous people that's not from there, but that was there at one point. He asked to let them go. And the Assyrian king refused to let that go. And guess what? Akhenaten come from the priesthood. They told you that. He used what we all call today voodoo. Trap spirits. A lot of these children was not waking up the next day. That is voodoo attack against these Assyrian because that's his land. He built those pyramids. He know where to put sigils and magical shit. And that's what they was trying to tell you within the so-called Moses story. You remember what they told you in the story? That you have to sacrifice one. I don't know if it was a sheep, and take the blood of the sheep and pass it in the door, like mark every door with the blood of a sheep. Now ask yourself this. That is voodoo 101. They put this shit in your face. Now why the blood of the lamb? Because we cast demons into animal. Let me say it again. We make sure we trap those demons in animals so the sheep have a demons inside of it. So if we sacrifice that sheep, a demon's going to be free. And we direct that demons against the enemy. God damn it. This is the knowledge of a freaking trillion, man. God, I don't know what to say to y'all, man. Y'all too blissful to get this knowledge. This is the goddamn knowledge of a trillion. Did you understand? The bodies of animal were used as prison for demons. So sacrifice a sheep mean you open the doorway for one of those demons that's trapped inside of that sheep. You let it get free and get loose on the enemy. That's what was going on down there. And that's what causing all of these so-called newborn Asaurian children, newborn invaders was getting unalive by boatload because that demon attacked those babies. That is voodoo 101. That's what they hide from you. They don't want you to know that. So, Akhenaten notice and tell them this shit ain't no joke. And they realize soon enough, not only Akhenaten have technology, they always told you that Moses get on top of a mountain to go communicate with God. It was not Moses going on top of a mountain. They talk about where Akhenaten have his ship park. His ship was by the mountain because he don't want his ship to be detected by regular people. He parked his spaceship by the mountain. And when people said they saw a bush of light, they talk about the spacecraft that actually not only when it start to get activated, just like we still seeing them today, they look like a ball of light. That was the Akhenaten spacecraft. This spacecraft you're looking at in this artifacts, okay? That was the spaceship they were describing in the Bible. That is right there. That it is in this artifacts. And guess what? The exact chariot of fire, exactly. That is right there. That burning bush. That is the spaceship parked. So the bush look like it's burning because the spaceship radiate frequency, and it will look like a ball of light because that's how those ships maneuver. Okay? So from there, Akhenaten got his people and is on his way out. And some of his people was fleeing, and they were trying to unalive some of his people. He dropped what we call red mercury. Red mercury is what we call fuel for these ships. Our ship is supercharged by red mercury. Red mercury were used, that's why you call the Red Sea. The Red Sea is actually mercury that's in the Red Sea. And it was actually happened when Akhenaten released the red mercury into the ocean in order to use the magnetic anti-gravity to cause the opening of the goddamn sea, what you call part the sea. It was magnetic in mercury that causes the shit to happen. This was your Moses story, and today we still have the Red Sea. That is still mercury that causes the sea to look like this from ancient time. A trillion, baby, a knowledge of a trillion. Yes, Moses staff is technology. What you call Moses staff is the same staff the emperors use. This is zero technology, and it's a frequency staff. If you come from a 0-point energy system, that means Tartaria, these staff is tech staff. Do you understand? They are conductors. Exactly. So this is what happens, and they sell it to you differently. Because their story comes from America, and they cannot allow you to know that America is the old world. America is the mother world, and they switch absolutely everything as above, so below, because they all operate in the below, because it was from above. We come from the above, but they operate as the below, and they make everything as below we are in today. So, fast forward as I give you the story. This is what ended up happens from then, and that become the continental war that we still facing off today. The good old continental war between the continent of America and Africa and the rest of the world. Okay? So, for some people that just always wondered, this was the last assassination that causes the end of the empire. And this is what the whole world was taking places. When you hear about the year 1492, because this is another timeline they use, remember 1492 is just another timeline that they pick and choose. The times are off. They tore off the timeline. Matter of fact, we operate on 12 months. We used to have 13 months, so the timeline is severely off. And we on 444 right now, so this is divine, intervention. We are divinely explain our true story. I mean, God, they could even stop this. This is special gathering right now. So, your 1492 is eventually what we call a humanitarian work from those children's of the Imperium. Okay? Now, for people that don't understand, 1492 is when they trying to do what we call today the process of invade the America. This was the second step of invade Wakanda, then invade El Dorado. Okay, now what is El Dorado? America. They started before with today you call it none other than the Genghis Kublai. Kublai did comes here, and Kublai was the one trying to find ways to take over the Imperium. And he actually do get the guidance from ancient Assyrians descendant, as they want to call them today, the Ottoman Empire. Okay, these are the ancient groups of people that they want to call also the Byzantine Empire. Same group, their sole purpose was to invade what we call El Dorado, is to invade the Imperium you call Amarukan. And that was the first trying after Akhenaten, after the civilization of Akhenaten timeline. This was the second time for them to invade, and this time was done by Kublai, and these were the Mongols. Kublai did show up here, and they got neutralized by these Panther soldiers. This is your Black Panther right there. When you watch the Black Panther, he's protecting his territory against invaders. That is, this is where they get this inspiration from, the suits and all of that. This represent the Kublai, okay? And after Kublai got, kicked out, this is when the knowledge of the dragon was brought to Asia, because he learned the dragon here, what you call the Kukulkan, and he called himself after the experience, after the humiliation experience, because he got scalped, okay? He got scalped. That means they remove he was never noble, but this was a action of removing your strength, because your true nationality is your hair. Our indigenous ancestors see hair as nationality. Your hair is your nobility. This is your sense of connection with the universe. This is who you connect with your ancestors to your frequency crown. Your hair is your identity. So if they remove your hair, that means you have no connection with your ancestors. And that's what caused scalp. And we cut off the ether. Exactly. So after Kublai got scalped, Kublai went back Asia with what we call a modern day hairstyle you will find in majority of Asian people, where they don't have hair in the front. They will deliberately shave their frontal hairline as a hairdo, but it's because their leader come back like that, so they think this must be the new ish. Okay, so this is why you find it heavily all over these places in Asia, especially in the ancient time. Because when he come back, they strip him from his honor. But these people, they didn't know that. They didn't know that, and this is why our ancestors create what we call the China Wall, okay? The Great China Wall. These were the indigenous Tartarian that built that wall to block these Mongolian barbarian to come back here again, okay? This is why the wall is facing China. People never talk about that. So this is when now he creates what we call the dragon culture, because he learned that we have the dragon as an ancestry. The dragon is the snake we call today, the Kukulkan, and he thought by calling himself a Khan mean king, so he used that term Khan from his bad experience. He called himself a Khan among his people, mean a king, and he bring the dragon, and that become a symbology of power to them. Appreciate you, Matriarch. And that's what happens. Fast forward. After that time, years later, that's when you have Columbus of today. Okay? Your Columbus is none other than the Byzantine Empire, what you call the Byzantine Empire that moved later on. Today you want to call it the Ottomans, and they want to repackage it as Spain. They were never Spain. Spain was not even into existence at that time, and the word Spain is just a language. But they were the one that come here and ask and beg in the Imperium for help, okay? They come here to ask for help because they understand we are spiritual beings. They know who we are. They know we value life more than anything. Let me say it one more time. They know we value life more than anything in this world, because life mean a host, and a host mean a potential for rehab for spirits, and these spirits, it might be one of our ancestors that go into the cycle of humanity. So we must not allow life to be diminished. We must not allow life to face extinction. So for that reason, our indigenous ancestors agree to send humanitarian work to the people they call today as Columbus, but this is a term they define as today. But this was in a humanitarian work to extend life because they were facing extinction all over to the rest of the world. We talking about Europe of today, and also Africa of today. These were area that was famine, disease, you name it. And this is what happens in 1492 when Columbus got here. He received a humanitarian work, and the Imperium dispatched, what you call the IT Empire, dispatched the humanitarian aid to survive and help them survive what they were facing. And the humanitarian aid was coming from the Imperium. Now, what are these places? It was coming from Louisiana. It was coming from Mississippi. It was coming from Alabama. It was coming from all over the Americas. We were dispatched actually ships all over these places. We dispatched major ships and manpower. I'm talking about architect. We talking about people for agriculture, medicines, you name it. We send it for that humanitarian work. And for that, this is when Europe went to the dark age to the golden age. When you heard they told you that the Moors went to Europe and civilized Europe, they talk about the M-U-U-R. Okay? This is the Moors they talking about. Okay? Because they still celebrate those. This is in Europe. White people celebrate these indigenous that went to save Europe. These were the M-U-U-R-S that went to save as a humanitarian work. So when you hear they told you that they saved Europe from all sort of, famines and diseases and all of that, These were the people that went, the Tar children. The Tar children were the one that went in Europe. That's why you see white people cover themselves in tar. Put the tar on their face because they were immolate the Tartar indigenous ancestors. Let me show you who they are even more. Because we bring this knowledge of a trillion. What we do here is to bring the facts and the truth. Because we don't talk, we only bring the facts. And these are the facts. Let me show you some tar. Okay? Let me show you some tar. Who these folks were. I'm going to do this. This is a Christmas gift I'm giving to y'all. So you're welcome. Shout out to the big homie, Coach Jansen. Welcome to the cookout.